Welcome back to this week's episode of the Transform IT podcast. I'm Patrick Pauls.
And I'm Miraj Patrick.
And today we are going to be talking about hackathons.
Well, more specifically, we're talking about digital transformation and how we can look at it from an internal lens and see how organizations can implement them to move forward with their IPs and their products and services.
So basically, what we're talking about today is how companies can use a hackathon, make it fun, and bring a lot of people in to do a lot of cool stuff and actually get something out of it.
So before we get into it, let's talk about the things that we're going to talk about today, right? We know we've heard about digital transformation. It's a buzzword in the industry across the board. But like I said earlier, a lot of news and topics they hear about this stuff is facing towards clients. So before we get into that podcast, let's talk about what we're going to talk about, right? So we've heard digital transformation. It's a hot buzzword across the industry, right? So we've heard a lot about how you can implement it to help clients expand and grow. But let's look at it from a internal lens and see how we can help organizations get knowledge and implement those to grow internally first.
Right. You know, I like how you touched on that briefly, but we're not going to go over digital transformation right now.
No.
I mean, that's a whole nother podcast.
Yeah.
And it's this whole glamorous, sales pitch and term for this change. Yeah. But what Miraj was saying is we really want to kind of narrow this down to say, okay, what are hackathons? How do they relate to digital transformation? And how can they actually help the business out?
Yeah, absolutely. And just to piggyback off what Patrick was saying is that we're going to have multiple topics on digital transformation. It's a very broad topic, and we're going to kind of break it down. And in today's episode, it's all about hackathons. It's all about how, beyond even hackathons, how internally you can grow the company and have that mindset, that culture that allows you to take full advantage and reach the capacity potential that's needed to get ahead of the market. So we know what DT is, digital transformation. We understand the benefits overall in how it can help the company expand, grow, increase their revenues, get more clients, all of those things. But I believe that it starts with company values, right? Starts with the company mindset, integrated across departments, having it put into practice, and also having employees be recognized for their efforts, and also have that kind of transparency where there's a lot of honesty about what's working, what's not. And with that mindset, then you can kind of get into tools and techniques such as a hackathon to truly get ahead.
All right, so before we go any further, let's talk about a little bit about what the hackathon is and how it kind of progressed and how we're going to change it for the modern workplace.
Sure,
so,
let's go.
I mean, anyone can Google a hackathon and find out what it was, but one of the things that I came, when I went to school, I came up as a software developer, and we would throw little mini hackathons in our common rooms to help come up with a solution for a specific problem. Okay, maybe my team was having a little bit of trouble, with a project that we were working on. So we just sit down there with a case of Red Bull and get together and stay there until the problem was solved. I mean, sometimes you just have to get out of your mindset and your traditional day-to-day and change it up a little bit.
Yeah.
I mean, if you remember, or not remember, but hackathons, if you look up the definition, they typically talk about software development. Yeah. And they talk about a bunch of people getting together in this loosely organized event where this free flow of ideas comes together, and people that are young and old and experienced and inexperienced all come together and they create something or some things that could benefit some or all of the people there.
Yeah. Now, the concept is the same, but it can be extrapolated to apply to any industry.
Right. I would also like to say that there's a little bit of a distinction, at least something that we've made, is there's really a external or public type of hackathon, and then there's an internal or company specific hackathon for our purposes here in this discussion today.
Now we'll talk about both.
Right. We want to talk about both. So first, like the public hackathon.
Yeah.
I mean, that's a very interesting thing because that's more of a networking and public facing event, whether you want to get some community service in or help out some companies or just get your employees out of the office into another environment where they're doing something together. Now, I don't really want to touch on that too much because, well, that has, that's more of a PR marketing kind of, community type of event.
Yeah, it's a more grand scale event.
Right.
And it takes a lot more effort.
Yeah. Yeah, definitely. And like I said, I didn't really want to focus on that because I think today really want to focus on the internal kind of hackathons and how it's kind of rebranded and changed to specifically benefit the company and how that can be leveraged for this internal digital transformation.
Yeah, absolutely. So let's get into benefits, right? We're talking a lot about hackathons. It's obviously been something that's more commonplace in the last decade with technology being so rapid and growing so fast. Why don't you tell me some benefits that you've come across? Just from you, I know you did a hackathon, so based on that or based on what you've experienced, what benefits can you tell me about?
Well, first thing, I want to follow up on one point that you just brought up real fast, is that the technology is changing rapidly, but one of the big things is, and this is a tagline that a lot of people already talk about, is every company is a technology company now. Whether you have a specific industry and you leverage technology and technology has become a massive part of it, or like us, we're a technology company and technology is at the heart of everything that we do.
Yeah, and we even do hackathons.
Right. And the reason why I wanted to bring that up is that these type of hackathon events, whether it's core software development like the traditional hackathons, are more of planning, brainstorming sessions and wondering how you can improve your processes and your business with technology. It still has value there, and don't just discount it because you don't have a bunch of software developers sitting in a corner trying to code out a solution for something.
Yeah, it could be processes, it could be coming up with new ideas. It doesn't have to be completely technical, like you're saying.
Right. And like I said, this all depends on the company culture, what the end goals are, and a little bit of planning that you put into the hackathon before it actually happens.
Yeah, absolutely.
But going back to the benefits, because that was the actual question you asked me.
Yeah.
Bringing it back up a level here. So one of the biggest benefits that I see from hackathons is personal empowerment or empowering the employees.
Yeah, absolutely.
And you ask, why? What does employee empowerment have to do with anything? Well, one of the things that I mentioned earlier is that you have a bunch of developers and a bunch of problem solving and project managers, and you have this huge conglomeration of people that all have very specific skill sets, all come from different walks of life, and they have basically, some of them may not work together every day. You get them all in a room and you tell them, hey, why don't you come solve this problem? You may be really surprised with what these people come up with. Your entry-level employee that's making a little bit of money that just got out of college may have some really fresh, practical ideas because they haven't been bogged down by the bureaucracy and, become a little bit cynical after 15 years in the industry. So they may actually have a different perspective on how to solve these problems. Now, again, you take some software developers and some new perspective, and you'd be amazed at what you can come up with. I mean, you talk about anything from Lyft to Uber to, Airbnb. These are all basically fresh ideas that are coming out of people that haven't spent 30 years in the industry.
Yeah.
These are people that are new to the industry that saw something, they wanted to solve a problem. And the real takeaway here, the trick is, okay, how do you take that kind of fresh outlook and those abilities and put them together to actually solve this problem that can enhance your business?
Yeah. So that obviously that all that you mentioned is empowering people to come up with new ideas to practice or enhance their skills and kind of build on them, right?
Right. I mean, I think you touched that's another really good point, and it's kind of a little bit different from what I was saying, but ultimately, because you have all of these different experience levels and all of these different people from all these different departments together, then you're talking about, hey, maybe someone talks about, someone that's been doing it for 15 years talks to the person that's only been doing it for 2, and they learn a little bit.
Yeah.
And maybe the person that's been doing it for 15 years gets those fresh ideas. So your skills are being enhanced. And maybe you take a look at someone that's over in accounting and they have no idea how the technology people do what they do. And they get a little bit more perspective on why the processes are in place or what the problems that they're having. If nothing else, it can also develop some empathy between your employees for the different things they do and the different challenges they have on a given day.
Yeah. It allows for organizational transparency at the end of the day, right? Because like you said, someone who's more experienced versus someone who's not can come together, they can discuss their ideas, and both can learn from each other and kind of take some kind of a collaborative approach to it, which is what a hackathon is, right? You kind of bring people together, and through this transparency, through the culture that's being cultivated, you can have people of different skill sets, of different years of experience, different perspectives, come together with a project that's been defined or analyzed to kind of everyone put their skills together. This is what we want to do. Let's go ahead and do it. We have a set allotted number of time, hours, days, whatever it can be, right?
Right. And I'd like to follow on. That's a great point. But I think something that, I just kind of realized, but when I've been involved in these hackathons before, especially when I was younger and I had just gotten into the technology industry, it was really awesome to be able to work as a part of a smaller team or even a larger team, but people actually listen to what I'm saying.
Yeah.
I tend to think that I can be a loud, obnoxious person. If you've been listening for a while, you know that I have a tendency to be loud and sometimes obnoxious, but that's debatable. And, being able to have these people that have been here for 15, 20 years and doing these things, actually listen to what I'm saying and think about the things that I'm saying, opposed to just automatically discount me because, you have 2 years, what do you know? And that in itself has made me feel valued and, encouraged and actually driven me to be a better developer and a better, basically, person
Overall,
and IT person in general.
Yeah.
One of the biggest things that I find is that sometimes people get bogged down in the monotony of the day to day, and when they come back, when you do things like this, they get excited, they feel valued. You have some transparency into the company, as you previously mentioned, and you get to interact, and you, like I said, you break this standard day to day, and you typically come out with something that's better than when you started.
Yeah, and that again, that your last point is the main point of a hackathon, right? Despite all these benefits that are all great for an organization to kind of experience and put together, at the end of the day, you're trying to get ahead of the market, the industry, or even your own perceived limitations to come together and develop something that might not have been possible in many people's eyes, but now you're working towards it. And again, when you have a culture that's transparent, where people can have honest, open conversations, where you have great collaborative encouragement and support, where you have empowered individuals who feel like their ideas are being heard, you can come up and you combine that with the skills that are already there or that are being enhanced, you can come out with something that's truly powerful and amazing that you can kind of put out there, to whether it's to your clients or even in like an internal process, which can be a game changer. And that's where you digitally transform.
Right. And that segues into our next topic of, R&E, right? So
yeah,
we're talking about, you're talking about having this deliverable, but one of the biggest things that we've always talked about when it comes to digital transformation and when it comes to surviving in any type of industry is you have to come up with these new ideas. You have to be continually innovating, streamlining, and enhancing yourselves so that you can stay relevant, you can cut your costs, and you can actually succeed in the marketplace, right? I mean, that's just, at least from my perspective, business 101 in modern technology.
That's just how it is now.
You run your company, you have to have agility, you have to adapt, you have to embrace new technologies. And one of the ways that people can do that is they try and spend all of this money and pump it back internally into R&E. Well, this is a hackathon is one of those things that you can do that not only does it develop your people, but you put that money back into R&E and that effort back into R&E, but you're getting more than just that R&E team developing something. You're getting real development of your people, because your people make your company. And without your people, you're sitting here, you're just a bunch of paperwork and some dollar signs in an account somewhere.
Yeah.
So it also, as you mentioned, kind of brings back this new opportunity, right? Not only is it personal opportunities, but there's opportunities for the company. In these hackathons, especially the internal ones that you run, you very well may develop some type of intellectual property, whether it be a software solution, a process, maybe an idea or a plan that you can reuse, it becomes a run book or something like that. The intellectual property that is developed in these, or these proprietary solutions to problems, can in itself be a justification for the entire process.
Yeah.
And you just happen to get a lot of extra development on your people side, and some, you improve morale, and you get to do this fun event at the same time.
Yeah.
So, if you have to justify the business case to, your financial people or whatever, why are you spending this time and this money? Why are you pulling people off these projects, pushing everything to the right a couple of days so we can do this hackathon? Well, there's your justification right there. We could develop some intellectual property. We could solve some of these problems. We can digitally transform using the assets we already have locally, without having to go out and pay for these proprietary software solutions or develop these internal applications or software products, with these long running things during normal business hours.
Yeah.
You have this hackathon and boom, 12, 24, 36 hours. You're there, you're doing it, you have something, and maybe it's not a complete thing, but it's something, and it's, the benefits are just, like we've gone over several of them today, but the benefits are just, there are multiple benefits. And realistically speaking, the cost overhead associated with that is a little bit of labor cost.
Yeah.
And sometimes it may not even be that impactful on the labor, because if you're doing it, if you're doing an 18-hour sprint and you're in this hackathon, maybe that's in your 8-hour workday, but you're getting an extra 10 hours out of it. And not only are the people enjoying themselves, but you get a lot of kickback from that on the labor side.
Yeah, that makes sense. I agree with that. And there was a few key points that you made there, and I kind of want to transition into from that into some of the lessons that we've learned. So you've done a hackathon in school and with your buddies and stuff, and I've been a part of hackathons at SmartBridge here, and there's a lot of lessons to be learned from that. And one of the key things you mentioned was, like, you kind of want to automate a process or some product or service that you can kind of build on, so that'll allow you to automate and focus on things that help you innovate and grow in other areas that might be deemed more important, right? So one of the lessons that, for example, for me, that I learned from the hackathon was that you don't need to have a technological product or service that needs to be the key focus within the hackathon, right? It could be packaging your internal already existing documentation, services, processes in a way that, again, allow you to automate and allow you to focus on other things. So if you're listening, I would encourage you not to get discouraged in a sense about, I don't have the right technology or the right people with the right skills. Everyone has some kind of skill, and when you come together, you'd be surprised, because I was definitely surprised when I saw just seeing like the number of people with different skills, different backgrounds, different experiences. You spoke on this earlier. All of them coming together and having that one goal and helping out, and kind of teaching each other along the way and having fun, laughing, enjoying the free food.
But one of the big things, though, is everyone comes in on an equal playing field. It doesn't matter if you're the COO of a company or you're an entry-level employee. Everyone works on the same level to address the same problem, and that in itself can be one of those. It can be a major takeaway from that. Mm-hmm. And that's, like I said, that facilitates the sharing of ideas and these non-standard solutions to the problems. You talk about, okay, so we have a problem set. This is what we need to do to fix it. This is what these are different ideas we have to do to that. That segues in to another big thing is there are some challenges. I mean, we've been talking up hackathons like they're the best thing in the world, and everyone has to do them, and you should schedule a quarterly, or
you should at least try it. Yeah. Try it for yourself and learn from that, right?
Yeah, you should try. You should definitely try it, and you don't have to have one every month or every quarter.
Yeah.
But when you're setting these up, there are a few things that, setting these up and seeing some of the challenges that we've had in the past that we'd like to push on to you. So when you're thinking about this, you can definitely come in. We spoke about resource costs, labor costs, and maybe delaying your project timeline from a couple of days. Now that's a big key factor, but typically speaking, there's a bigger ROI on these hackathons than the actual cost. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
So that return is just significantly higher. Also, you have to make sure that you plan very well. Now, the whole concept of the hackathon is this kind of loose conglomeration of people that are working towards these common goals. But you have to set the stage in the environment to allow that collaboration to happen. So you need a big open space. That's one of the things people don't talk about. They're like, okay, we have this hackathon, right? And we're going to do it. So everyone just go to their normal desk and start working on this problem and meet up here. No. You need a big open space. I'm not saying that you have to go rent out, an arena or a hall or something, but, get a bunch of tables together in a common area where people are actually working on stuff together. And they need to be able to see each other and work next to each other and maybe pull up a chair behind another guy that's on a roll and see what he's doing and kind of spin off that. And I hate saying this, but build your synergy there, right?
Yeah.
Your people are feeding off each other and they're working together.
Yeah. Seeing that's what I'm talking about. When I see that in my hackathon experience, right? I saw that synergy in that environment. It was an amazing feeling, like you were saying. And of course, it kind of pushes you to kind of discover your own abilities that you felt like you had your own limits, and you can go beyond that when you learn from others. Like I could come up to you and whatever you're specializing in, I can learn something from you and kind of utilize it within my goal or project. Right. And again, planning is important, like you said. So beyond the open space, you need to have
food. I'm a relatively rotund fellow myself.
Yeah.
Well, at least, that's what I think.
Yes.
But one of the big things is, okay, so if you're sitting here and you're working and you're making progress, you don't actually want to interrupt that. So I jokingly said we sat down with a case of Red Bull and, we're able to go on. Well, that's true. You may want to have some food catered in or have some snacks and stuff
Free food
available.
is a must.
Yeah. And, I also say is that if you have any user resistance or people that don't want to come up to this and they don't want to really participate, you say, hey, we're going to bring you lunch and give you a bag of chips and maybe a Red Bull. And I don't know very many people that would really, be
say
like,
no,
I'm not going to show up now. If they're giving me free food, I may as well.
Yeah.
And when they get there, they typically see the kind of the awesomeness that is a hackathon, and they get involved in it. You just can't walk away. It's like walking by while someone's watching a movie and just getting drawn in and standing there for 15 minutes while you're watching the movie. And the same thing here. Draw people in with the food. Keep them charged up and energized so that they can keep going on their roll and don't have to stop unless they want to.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, I agree. And again, something I want to add on to the well-planned aspect of a hackathon is, the food is awesome. You got to have that. You got to have the open area, but having the focus on the actual projects and the R&Es that you want to develop during the hackathon, those have to be well planned. They have to have the right requirements, right breakdown, who's going to do what, who's a good fit for what, where would we best utilize and optimize everyone's time and efforts, right? Without that, it doesn't matter how long you spend, you're not gonna get the results that you're looking for. You have to have it well planned. You have to do the right analysis, and that may be a week before, 2 weeks before, depending on the scope, right? For me, the first hackathon that we did, we struggled with that, right? But with each iterative hackathon, we kind of learned from the next and grew on it, and going forward, you can kind of build on that and prepare your resources, have the right requirements, the right analysis to make sure that everyone streamlines.
So let's start from the top down. So you have to focus in on a couple of very specific problem sets that you may want to solve, right? And from there, then you allocate your resources appropriately and send people based on what they're good at to address those problems. Yeah. But you don't want to organize it too much, because the entire concept of this is it's a major collaborative event. So maybe you get some team leaders or some project leads that have that have some some good experience in something they're going to do, and then you put a bunch of other people that may be related or may not be related in that team together, so that you have that variety of ideas and inputs.
Yeah.
Additionally, we're talking about being really effective, and after you've developed this a couple of times. I mean, the first time you do a hackathon, one of the things is you may just have one problem. You may break that down into several sub problems, but you may have that one problem. And maybe what you can do is just kind of test the waters there and see if, without a whole lot of guidance, it just clearly define the problem set, that first problem, without a whole lot of clear guidance, and see if that will, that can make any progress.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
And there, once you've run a couple of these and you see what the value is, then maybe you can add 2 or 3 things and let people choose where they want to be. And that's when you'd have those project leads or those team managers there that have the experience that can kind of help direct and develop those internal things for those specific solutions.
Those are all good points. Now, if I'm a company and I'm listening to this right now, a lot of the things overlap, but for me to start a hackathon, what do I need?
What do you need? Well, okay, from my perspective, you need people.
Okay.
You need a place.
Yep.
Maybe some snacks.
Yep.
And
Not maybe.
a very clearly defined problem that you want to solve.
Yeah.
You get those things together. You get some people, some food, a space, and a problem. You put those all together. You have your first version of a hackathon, and
There
you
you
grow
go.
up from there.
That's all you need. You can test it out. You can see for yourself how it does for your organization. It can even give you a good baseline as to where you stand on this so-called spectrum, and you can kind of build on them if it's something that really fits for the culture, right?
I mean, that's exactly right.
Yeah.
That's the biggest thing. Take the risk. Try it out a couple times. See what happens. If you don't like it or it's not working with your company culture, so be it. But at least give it a shot, because the potential from these hackathons and this intellectual property that you develop and the skills that people develop and the sheer good time that they can have is definitely worth trying to set up an event or two. I mean, what's the worst that can happen?
If you're listening to this episode right now, I want to issue a challenge. Take this seriously. Try a hackathon, no matter how big or small it is. See what it does, and I implore you to do it. It's has some great benefits beyond what we've covered. The downsides are much less than what the capabilities and the potential that you can reach, right? So take the challenge, do it.
Like what Miraj says, you really just got to jump in full force, give it a shot, try it out, see what happens. And from that, you can develop, you can enhance, you can refine, and actually bring this into the company culture as a way to innovate. But without taking that first step, when you're jumping into a lake or a pool, you don't go in with your toes first and kind of ease your way in there. You just jump and make it happen. And when you make it happen, you get in there. Once you're in the middle of the process, then that's all you need. And you go from there and you make it better and you enhance it and you develop more. You become more efficient.
Awesome. So we talked about hackathons. We talked about digital transformation from an internal perspective, right? I hope that you guys got some value out of this episode. This is Miraj Patrick
and Patrick Pauls.
Thanks for joining us. We'll hope to see you next time.